The enormous ships appeared suddenly on a Tuesday morning. They emerged from what scientists later called a fold in space, their gleaming hulls reflecting the sun as they positioned themselves in a perfect formation above Earth. Governments worldwide scrambled to respond. Military forces went on high alert. News channels abandoned their regular programming. Social media exploded with a mixture of panic, excitement, and memes. In the midst of this chaos, Susan Miller remained surprisingly calm. As the director of NASA's Extraterrestrial Communication Division, she had spent her entire career preparing for this moment. She pushed her glasses up and turned to her assistant. "Well, John, looks like we finally have something interesting to do around here," she said, reaching for her coffee mug. John Baker stared at the massive screens showing the alien fleet. "Dr. Miller, there are 16 ships out there. Each one is larger than Manhattan." "I can count, John," Susan replied. "Let's see what they want." The alien transmission came 3 hours later. Every screen on Earth capable of receiving a signal displayed the same image. A tall, purple-skinned being with 4 arms and eyes that glowed like distant stars. It wore an elaborate uniform covered in what appeared to be medals and insignia. "People of Earth," the alien began in perfect English, its voice deep and resonant. "I am Admiral Zach Stiller, Supreme Commander of the 7th Exploratory Wing of the Galactic Imperial Fleet. Our scanners detected your primitive civilization, and we have come to bring you the greatest honor in the known universe." The alien paused dramatically before continuing. "The Galactic Empire, in its 50,000 years of benevolent rule over 300,000 worlds, has decided to extend its protection to your planet. Your resources will be cataloged, your leaders will be educated in proper imperial governance, and your people will be elevated to the status of imperial subjects within 3 of your Earth years." Admiral Zach Stiller spread his 4 arms wide in what was clearly meant to be a magnanimous gesture. "Rejoice, humans. This day marks the end of your isolation and the beginning of your glorious service to the Empire. We expect your planetary leaders to prepare suitable welcome ceremonies and tribute offerings within 24 hours. Glory to the Empire." The transmission ended abruptly, leaving a stunned silence in Susan's command center. "Well," she said after a moment, "that was certainly dramatic." "Dr. Miller," John said, his voice shaking slightly, "they're expecting us to surrender our planet by tomorrow." Susan took a sip of her coffee and grimaced. It had gone cold. "No, John. They're expecting us to be impressed and grateful. That's much worse." She stood up and straightened her jacket. "Get me the President and the UN Secretary General. And someone get me a fresh coffee." 6 hours later, after non-stop emergency meetings with world leaders, Susan sat at her desk composing Earth's official response. The President had given her full authority to handle the situation, saying, "You're the expert, Susan. Just don't get us all killed." Susan finished typing and read over her message one last time. It was direct, polite, and completely lacking in the reverence the aliens clearly expected. She hit send. In the command center of the Imperial flagship, Admiral Zach Stiller was growing impatient. He had expected immediate submission from this primitive world. Instead, they had spent hours in what appeared to be internal discussions. "Admiral," his communications officer called out, "we're receiving a response from the humans." "Finally," Zach Stiller said, settling into his command throne. "Display it." The message appeared on the main view screen. "To Admiral Zach Stiller of the Galactic Imperial Fleet. Thank you for your interest in Earth. We appreciate you taking the time to visit our solar system. If you wish to discuss interstellar relations, please schedule an appointment through our diplomatic office. We'll be happy to meet with you during regular business hours. In the meantime, please be advised that unauthorized resource cataloging or any attempt at governance change will be considered an act of aggression. Regards, Dr. Susan Miller, Director, NASA Extraterrestrial Communication Division." The command center fell silent as Zach Stiller read the message once, then twice. His luminous eyes narrowed to dangerous slits. "Is this a joke?" he finally asked, his voice dangerously quiet. No one dared answer. Zack Stiller stood, his four fists clenched. They dare to treat the Empire like some common trader seeking a business meeting. This is an insult that cannot stand. He turned to his second-in-command. Prepare a demonstration of our power. These humans need to learn their place in the universe. 3 days after the first contact, a smaller Imperial ship landed on the large lawn in front of the United Nations building in New York. The ship was still impressive by human standards, about the size of a passenger jet, and decorated with gold and silver symbols of the Empire. From the ship emerged Grand Emissary Vex Doran, followed by 6 Imperial guards. Vex Doran was taller than Admiral Zack Stiller, with skin that shifted colors like oil on water. He wore robes that seemed to float around him, giving the impression he was always surrounded by a gentle breeze. I expect to be greeted by your world leaders, Vex Doran announced to the small group of humans waiting at the bottom of his ship's ramp. A young man in a simple blue suit stepped forward. His tie was slightly crooked, and he carried a tablet computer under one arm. Hi there, he said with a friendly smile. I'm Jack Peterson, Assistant Deputy for Special Diplomatic Affairs. Welcome to Earth. Vex Doran's skin turned a dark purple. Assistant Deputy. The Empire sends its Grand Emissary and Earth sends an assistant. Jack's smile didn't waver. We're a bit busy today. Climate Summit and all that. But don't worry, I'm fully authorized to speak on behalf of the United Nations. The Imperial Guards shifted uncomfortably, hands near their weapons. Vex Doran seemed to struggle with his composure before speaking again. Very well. Lead me to your negotiation chamber. Instead of the grand hall Vex Doran expected, Jack led them to a medium-sized conference room. The windows offered a nice view of the New York skyline, but the room was otherwise plain. A pitcher of water and some glasses sat on the table along with a plate of cookies. Help yourself to refreshments, Jack said, sitting down and opening his tablet. We got about 90 minutes before I need to get to another meeting. Vex Doran remained standing, his skin now cycling through various shades of red. Perhaps you don't understand the situation, Assistant Deputy Peterson. The Galactic Empire has chosen to incorporate your world into its domain. This is not a negotiation between equals. Jack looked up from his tablet. Actually, Earth doesn't really do the whole incorporation thing anymore. We're more into mutual cooperation these days. Cooperation. Vex Doran's voice rose. The Empire does not cooperate. We rule. That's going to be a problem, Jack said calmly. But let's look at what you're offering. Vex Doran slammed a metallic cube onto the table. It projected a holographic document titled Standard Imperial Protection Treaty. This is the same treaty signed by 300,000 worlds, Vex Doran said. It outlines your resource contributions, population management requirements, and technological limitations. Jack scrolled through the document quickly. So we give you 30% of our resources, limit our technological development, and provide workers for your colonies. And in return, you don't destroy us. Precisely, Vex Doran said, his skin settling into a satisfied blue tone. Jack slid the cube back across the table. Yeah, that's not going to work for us. Here's our counteroffer. He tapped his tablet, and a simple document appeared on the screen. Mutual cultural exchange, limited resource sharing at fair market values, and recognition of Earth's full sovereignty. Vex Doran stared at the document, then at Jack. You cannot be serious. Completely serious, Jack said. We're happy to be friends, but we're not looking for new management. Do you understand? Vex Doran said slowly, that the Empire has an armada that could reduce your cities to ash within hours. Jack took a sip of water. Threats aren't a great way to start a friendship, Mr. Vex Doran. Grand Emissary Vex Doran, the alien corrected automatically. Sorry about that, Jack said, not sounding sorry at all. Look, we've dealt with bullies before. It never ends well for anyone. I suggest we take a lunch break and come back when you're ready to negotiate in good faith. Vexdoran's skin turned almost black with rage. You call the Empire a bully? This is an insult beyond measure. Jack checked his watch. I can offer you 30 more minutes today, or we can reschedule for next week. What works better for you? Vexdoran stormed out of the room without another word, his guards hurrying to keep up. Jack calmly took a cookie from the plate and made a note on his tablet. I think that went pretty well, he said to himself, biting into the cookie. Back on the Imperial flagship, Admiral Zack Stiller paced the command deck. His 4 arms were clasped behind his back, and his glowing eyes burned with barely contained rage. This is unacceptable, he said as Grand Emissary Vexdoran finished reporting on the failed negotiations. No species has ever rejected an Imperial protection treaty. None. The humans seem to lack a proper understanding of their situation, Vexdoran said. His skin had settled into an annoyed orange color. They treated me like a common trade representative. Zack Stiller stopped pacing. Show me our initial scans of their planet again. A large holographic globe of Earth appeared in the center of the command deck. Various data points glowed across its surface. Primitive nuclear fission power, rudimentary space exploration limited to their own solar system, projectile weapons that use chemical explosions, Zack Stiller read aloud. Nothing that should give them such confidence. What are we missing? A new figure entered the command deck. She was shorter than most Imperials, with gray skin and 6 eyes arranged in a circle around her head. She wore the simple black uniform of the Imperial Intelligence Service. Perhaps I can offer some insight. Admiral, she said. Zack Stiller nodded. Military strategist, Krelvax. I was about to summon you. Krelvax approached the holographic Earth. Our standard scans look for technology similar to ours, but humans have developed along unusual lines. She gestured, and the display changed to show various human weapons, vehicles, and cities. They have been at war with each other continuously throughout their recorded history, she continued. Even now, their planet is divided into almost 200 separate nations, many with their own military forces. That should make them easier to conquer, Zack Stiller said dismissively. One would think so, Krelvax agreed. But their constant conflict has created a species that adapts quickly. They've developed thousands of ways to kill each other and destroy things. She paused, her 6 eyes blinking in sequence. And they're accelerating. The display shifted to show a timeline of human technological development. From their first powered flight to walking on their moon took them only 66 years, Krelvax said. From basic computers to artificial intelligence took less than a century. They are advancing faster than any species we've encountered. Vexdoran's skin turned a worried shade of green. But they're still centuries behind us. In most areas, yes, Krelvax agreed. But there's something else. She changed the display again, showing human entertainment media. They spend an extraordinary amount of time imagining scenarios where they fight against superior forces and win, she said. They call it entertainment, but it might also be preparation. Mental training. Images from human movies flashed by, alien invasions being repelled, advanced civilizations being outsmarted by human ingenuity. They've been practicing for our arrival for over a century, Krelvax said quietly. Zack Stiller stared at the images. Are you suggesting we should fear these primitives? Fear? No, Krelvax said. But caution would be wise. They don't behave like other species we've encountered. They should be terrified of us, yet they seem almost bored. That's what makes their response so insulting, Vexdoran added, his skin darkening. There's one more thing, Krelvax said. We've been monitoring their communications since arrival. Many humans are discussing ways to copy our technology based just on visual observation of our ships. She brought up intercepted human communications, engineers discussing the principles behind Imperial drives, scientists analyzing the composition of hull materials, military experts evaluating potential weaknesses in Imperial ship design. They're not just unafraid, Krelvax concluded. They're already figuring out how to use our presence to advance their own technology. A heavy silence fell over the command deck. Finally, Admiral Zach Stiller spoke. This cannot stand. If they will not be impressed by our presence, they must be made to fear our power. He turned to his weapons officer. Prepare a demonstration. Target their largest uninhabited moon. Show them what happens to those who insult the Empire. As orders were given and the crew rushed to comply, Krelvax remained motionless, her 6 eyes fixed on the image of Earth. I'm not sure that will work, Admiral, she said quietly, too quietly for anyone to hear. I'm not sure they know how to fear. The Imperial flagship moved into position near Earth's moon. It was the largest ship in the fleet, almost 5 miles long, with weapons that could reduce a planet to molten rock. Admiral Zach Stiller wanted the humans to see it clearly before the demonstration began. Open a channel to all Earth communication systems, he ordered. I want every human to witness this moment. Once again, screens across Earth displayed the purple-skinned Admiral. This time, his 4 arms were crossed over his chest, and his expression was stern. People of Earth, he began, your representatives have shown disrespect to the Galactic Empire. Such behavior cannot be tolerated. To demonstrate the power you are foolishly challenging, we will now destroy your moon. There was a pause. Then Zach Stiller frowned and turned to someone off-screen. What do you mean they have a name for it? Fine. He turned back to the camera. We will now destroy what you call the moon. Observe and reconsider your position. The transmission ended. On Earth, reactions varied widely. Government officials held emergency meetings. Religious leaders called for prayer. But strangely, millions of ordinary people went outside with cameras, phones, and telescopes, treating the event like some kind of cosmic fireworks show. In her office at NASA, Susan Miller watched the Imperial flagship position itself. She picked up her phone and dialed. Dr. Alan Murphy. It's Susan. Yes, I'm watching it too. I need you to record everything. Every detail. Energy readings, radiation signatures, all of it. On the Imperial flagship, Zach Stiller gave the command. Fire the planet killer. The front of the flagship opened like a flower blooming, revealing a massive crystal array. Energy built up inside it, glowing brighter and brighter until it was painful to look at. Then a beam of pure white energy shot out, striking the moon. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then cracks appeared across the moon's surface, spreading like spiderwebs. The cracks grew wider, deeper, as the energy penetrated to the core. Finally, with a silent explosion, the moon shattered into thousands of massive chunks, drifting slowly apart. On the command deck, Zach Stiller smiled. Now they will understand who they are dealing with. Admiral, his communications officer called. We're receiving thousands of signals from Earth. Put them on screen. Let me see their panic. The main view screen filled with images from Earth, crowds in cities looking up at the sky, people in their homes watching through windows. But they weren't panicking. They were recording the event on their devices, sharing it online, even cheering in some places. Where is the fear? Zach Stiller demanded. Where is the submission? Admiral, the communications officer said, we're receiving an official response from Earth. Dr. Alan Murphy appeared on screen. He was a middle-aged man with thick glasses and unruly gray hair. He looked excited rather than frightened. Good afternoon, Admiral Zach Stiller. Dr. Alan Murphy here, Chief Science Officer at NASA. That was quite a demonstration. Very impressive energy projection system you've got there. Murphy shuffled some papers. Our initial readings show some interesting details about your weapon. The propulsion system is particularly fascinating, though I have to say it seems highly inefficient in terms of energy consumption. He smiled at the camera. We'd be happy to share some research papers on fusion containment if you're interested. Might help you improve your yield by at least 30%. Murphy pushed his glasses up. Oh, and don't worry about the moon debris. We're tracking all significant pieces. Nothing dangerous will reach Earth. Though next time, if you're planning another demonstration, we'd appreciate a little more notice so we can position our satellites for better readings." The screen went blank. The command deck was completely silent. Krelvax stepped forward. "Admiral, this response is unprecedented." Zack Stiller's glowing eyes were wide with disbelief. "We destroyed their moon, and they're offering us technical advice." "It appears they were more interested in studying our technology than being intimidated by it," Krelvax said. Zack Stiller sank into his command throne. "This doesn't make sense. No species has ever reacted this way." "Perhaps," Krelvax suggested carefully, "that is why humans might be more dangerous than we initially thought." While the Imperial fleet had been focused on diplomatic meetings and power demonstrations, humans had not been idle. Deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, in a facility unknown to the public, Major Danielle Woods led a special operations team with a single mission: understand the alien technology and find its weaknesses. "Report," she said, entering the command center where dozens of scientists and military personnel worked at computer stations. A young man with tired eyes looked up from his screen. "We've made progress, Major. The Imperial communications use a form of quantum entanglement, but they have a serious flaw in their encryption." Danielle nodded. "How serious?" "We can break in." He grinned. "Their system is advanced, but surprisingly rigid. They haven't updated their security protocols in what appears to be centuries." "Overconfidence," Danielle said. "They haven't faced a real challenge in too long." She walked to the center of the room where a holographic display showed the Imperial fleet in orbit around Earth. The flagship was still positioned where it had destroyed the moon, pieces of which were now slowly drifting apart. "They think they've scared us," she said. "It's time to show them they're wrong." "Do we have access to their internal systems?" "Yes, Mom," another technician called out. "We can access their life support, navigation, and communications." "What about weapons?" "Those are on a separate network. We can't control them remotely." Danielle smiled. "That's fine. We don't need to fire their weapons. We just need to send a message." She turned to her team. "Prepare Operation Wake Up Call, and get me Captain Martinez on the line." Aboard the Imperial flagship, Admiral Zack Stiller was discussing their next move with his senior officers when something strange happened. Every screen on the command deck suddenly went black. Then, one by one, they lit up again, but now they all displayed the same message. "We QULAVHACKED or life support instead. Let's TALK proper alloy." Zack Stiller stared at the message in shock. "What is this? How did they access our systems?" "It's impossible," his chief of security said, frantically checking his console. "Our systems are sealed. No primitive technology cold." He was cut off as the ship's artificial gravity suddenly deactivated for exactly 3 seconds. Everyone and everything on the command deck floated briefly before crashing back down when gravity returned. "Admiral," the communications officer called out, his voice shaking. "We're detecting a ship approaching from Earth. It's small, just a single vessel." On the main view screen, a sleek black spacecraft appeared. It was tiny compared to the Imperial ships, but it moved with surprising speed and grace. "Open a channel," Zack Stiller ordered. The face of a human man appeared on screen. He had dark skin, short black hair, and wore a simple blue uniform with silver insignia on the shoulders. "This is Captain Greg Martins of the Earth vessel Defiant," he said calmly. "I've been authorized to conduct real negotiations with the Galactic Empire." "Real negotiations," Zack Stiller repeated, his voice dangerously quiet. "You hack our systems, and then you want to talk." "You destroyed our moon," Martins replied with a shrug. "We wanted to demonstrate that we're not as helpless as you assumed." "Seems fair." Krelvax stepped forward. "Admiral, I recommend we hear them out. They've proven they can penetrate our cyber defenses. That should not be possible with their technology level." Zack Stiller's glowing eyes narrowed. Very well. Captain Martinez, you may dock in Bay 7. Bring no more than 5 representatives. Thank you, Admiral, Martine said. And don't worry about trying to scan our ship or our people. Your systems will only tell you what we want them to. The communication ended. The command deck was silent for a long moment. How did they do this? Zach Stoller finally asked. How did they break through our defenses so easily? I don't know, Krelvax admitted. But it suggests we have severely underestimated these humans. As the small Earth ship approached the Imperial flagship, Danielle Woods watched from her underground command center. Phase 1 complete, she said. Now let's see if they're willing to listen. The technician next to her looked worried. Do you think sending Captain Martinez was the right call? He's known for his directness. Danielle smiled. That's exactly why he's perfect. The Empire needs to understand that humans don't scare easily. And more importantly, we don't respond well to bullies. After a week of intense negotiations, the Empire reluctantly agreed to a cultural exchange program. The idea came from Captain Martinez, who suggested that before any formal agreements were made, both sides should learn more about each other. Send your scholars, artists, and scientists, he had said. We'll do the same. Let's understand each other before we decide if we're friends or enemies. Admiral Zach Stoller had agreed, though mainly because he believed Imperial culture would overwhelm and impress the primitive humans. Now, as the first Imperial delegation arrived on Earth, he waited confidently for reports of human amazement. The delegation was led by Cultural Minister Thizurul, a tall, thin Imperial with skin that shimmered like mother of pearl. He had studied thousands of alien cultures during his long career. None had ever surprised him. Remember, he told his team as they prepared to disembark in New York City, these humans are barely space capable. Their culture will be simple, their art crude, their science basic. Be kind in your assessments. The delegation stepped out into bright sunshine. A small group of humans waited to greet them. No grand ceremony, no displays of submission. Just a woman in a red dress who stepped forward with a smile. Welcome to Earth, she said. I'm Olivia Brown, your cultural liaison. We've prepared a 2-week program to show you various aspects of human civilization. Shall we begin? The first stop was the Metropolitan Museum of Art. Kirivx, the Empire's foremost art expert, entered with an air of polite boredom. 6 hours later, she was still wandering the galleries, her data pad full of notes. The diversity, she kept saying. So many styles, so many perspectives. How can one species produce such different forms of expression? She stood before a Renaissance painting, then moved to examine modern abstract art, then ancient Egyptian sculptures. Our art has followed one tradition for 20,000 years, she whispered to Thezurul. They have thousands of traditions, all at once. The science delegation faced similar surprises. At a research university, Imperial scientists watched human researchers at work. Instead of the orderly, hierarchical approach used in Imperial science, humans worked in what appeared to be chaos. Different teams pursued contradictory theories. Researchers argued openly. Students questioned their professors. Inefficient, the lead Imperial scientist said at first. Then he watched as a young researcher combined 2 seemingly unrelated ideas and solved a problem that had been stumped the others. Interesting, he admitted. By the end of the first week, the Imperial delegation was struggling to process what they had seen. Humans lived in such variety, with so many different cultures, languages, and beliefs, all on one planet. The final shock came during the farewell dinner hosted by Olivia Brown, who turned out to be a famous chef. She prepared dishes that combined Earth ingredients with some Imperial spices she had requested. Thezurul took a bite of the main course and froze. This is our sacred Imperial spice blend, he said, but you've combined it with your Earth vegetables and meat in a way that... He seemed unable to find words. In a way that tastes better than traditional Imperial cuisine. Olivia suggested with a small smile. That would be heresy. Thezurol said automatically. Then he took another bite. But yes, somehow, it is better. Later that night, Thezurol sent his report to Admiral Zach Steller. His hands trembled slightly as he composed it. "The humans are unlike any species we have encountered," he wrote. "They do not have a single culture but thousands. They argue constantly yet somehow progress faster because of it. They create without limits or rules. And most disturbing of all, they learn from us and immediately improve upon what they learn." He paused, then added a final line. "I fear we have discovered a species that cannot be conquered by force or impressed by our achievements. They simply take what they find useful and discard the rest. It is both fascinating and terrifying." On Earth, younger members of the Imperial delegation were already asking to extend their stay. Some had begun collecting human music and art. A few were even experimenting with human clothing styles. The cultural exchange was having effects no one had predicted. The Imperial Council gathered on the flagship for an emergency meeting. All 12 senior ministers sat around a circular table, with Admiral Zach Steller at the head position. The mood was tense. For the first time in centuries, the Empire faced a situation with no clear solution. "This has gone on long enough," said War Minister Drazkothar, pounding his fist on the table. He was the oldest member of the council, with battle scars across his dark green skin. "We should simply take what we want from Earth. Our fleet could overcome their defenses in days." "Perhaps," said Science Minister Lex Ferrin, adjusting her viewing lenses. "But at what cost? Their technology is advancing daily as they study our ships. They've already broken through our communication security. What else have they learned that we don't know about?" Zach Steller looked around the table. "In 50,000 years, the Empire has encountered thousands of species. All of them either submitted or were conquered. Humans have done neither." Cultural Minister Thizurul nodded. "They adapt. They negotiate. They joke. And they seem entirely unimpressed by Imperial might. That's what makes them so insulting," Drazkothar growled. "They treat us like we're nothing special. Or worse," added Thizurul. "They treat us like we're interesting specimens to study." The council chamber fell silent as the door slid open. A junior officer entered, looking nervous. "What is it?" Zach Steller asked. "Apologies for the interruption, Admiral," the officer said. "But we've detected something concerning on Imperial communication channels." "Explain," Zach Steller ordered. The officer activated a display in the center of the table. It showed images from across the Empire's core worlds. Young Imperials wearing strange clothing. Imperial clubs playing human music. Imperial food stalls offering Earth-style cuisine. "Human culture is spreading through the Empire," the officer said, "especially among the younger generations." Drazkothar looked horrified. "How is this possible? We've only been in contact with Earth for 3 months." The officer shifted uncomfortably. "It seems humans are extremely skilled at what they call social media. Their cultural exchange delegates have been sharing Earth content on our networks. It's becoming popular." The display showed more images. Imperial youth wearing human-style clothing, watching human films, even adopting human gestures and slang. Thizurul looked both fascinated and troubled. "Their cultural influence is spreading faster than any species we've encountered. They don't need to conquer us militarily if they can make our own people want to be like them." Lex Verin studied the data carefully. "This presents both a problem and an opportunity. Humans represent a unique chance for the Empire to evolve beyond its stagnant traditions." "Stagnant?" Drazkothar's voice rose in anger. "Our traditions have kept the Empire strong for 50,000 years." "And unchanged," Lex Verin countered. "Perhaps that's why humans fascinate our youth. They offer something new." Admiral Zach Steller raised his 4 arms for silence. "We face an unprecedented situation. If we attack Earth, we might win the battle but lose something greater. If we continue this cultural exchange, our own civilization may change in ways we cannot control." "There is another concern," said a quiet voice from the end of the table. It was Krelvaxis who had remained silent until now. We've detected that humans are already adapting our technology. They're not just copying it, they're improving it. She displayed a series of technical schematics. These are designs we've intercepted from their research facilities. They've taken our propulsion systems and made them 30% more efficient. They've studied our weapons and found ways to counter them. In a few years, she continued, they might match our technological level. In a few decades, they could surpass us. The council room fell into stunned silence. Finally, Zax Thaler spoke. We have 3 options. Go to war immediately, before they grow stronger. Retreat and leave this sector of space entirely. Or, he paused, looking around the table, we can do something the Empire has never done before. What's that? Asked Drazkother suspiciously. Form a genuine alliance with the species as equals rather than subjects, Zax Thaler said. Learn from them as they learned from us. The council erupted into arguments. As the debate raged, Zax Thaler stared at the image of Earth rotating slowly in the display, wondering how such a small planet could cause such a large problem. 6 months after the Imperial fleet first appeared above Earth, Admiral Zax Thaler stood in the Grand Hall of the United Nations. Beside him was Frank Russell, the Secretary General of the UN. Between them on a small table lay a document unlike any the Empire had ever signed. The room was packed with delegates from every nation on Earth, as well as senior officials from the Empire. Cameras broadcast the event worldwide and across Imperial space. This was history in the making. Today marks a new chapter in galactic history, Frank said, his deep voice carrying across the silent hall. The first true alliance between Earth and the Galactic Empire. Zax Thaler nodded, his glowing eyes surveying the crowd. Many things had changed in 6 months. He had changed. The Empire had changed. And it had all started with the humans' strangely casual response to what should have been an overwhelming show of force. The treaty before us is not the standard Imperial document of submission, Zax Thaler said. It is something new. An agreement between equals, with benefits for both our civilizations. The document outlined trade agreements, cultural exchanges, technological cooperation, and mutual defense pacts. It acknowledged Earth's full sovereignty while creating pathways for humans to join imperial institutions if they wished. It was, as Jack Peterson had described it with typical human understatement, a pretty good deal for everyone. Zax Thaler and Frank signed their names. The hall erupted in applause. Hands were shaken. Formal pictures were taken. Speeches were given. Later, at a small reception, Zax Thaler found himself standing beside Frank on a balcony overlooking New York City. The Imperial Admiral stared at the human skyline, still trying to understand these creatures who had changed the course of a 50,000-year-old empire in less than a year. I must ask you something, Zax Thaler said finally. A question that has bothered me since our first contact. Frank sipped his drink. Go ahead. Why weren't you afraid of us? Zax Thaler asked. Every other species we've encountered recognized our power immediately. They submitted out of fear or awe. But humans, he gestured with his 4 arms in frustration. You treated us like we were nothing special. Like we were just another diplomatic meeting on your calendar. Frank smiled. You know, I've thought about that. And I think it comes down to our stories. Stories. Zax Thaler looked confused. Humans have spent our entire history telling stories about overcoming seemingly impossible odds. Frank explained. From ancient tales like David and Goliath to our modern films, humans are always the underdogs who find a way to win. He turned to look out at the city. When you arrived with your massive ships and advanced technology, it didn't trigger our fear. It activated our oldest and most powerful narrative. To us, you weren't the unbeatable empire. You were just the beginning of another story where humanity rises to the challenge. Zax Thaler was silent for a long moment. So when we tried to intimidate you, we immediately started looking for ways to overcome you. Frank finished. It's what we do. It's who we are. Zax Thaler shook his head. In all the Empire's history, no one has ever seen us that way, as just an obstacle to overcome. If it helps, Frank said, we do the same thing to ourselves. Look at human history. We're constantly overcoming our own limits, our own problems. It's how we've survived. As Frank was called away to speak with other dignitaries, Zach Stiller remained on the balcony, watching the city lights come on as evening fell. He realized now why the human response had seemed so insulting. The Empire hadn't added Earth to its collection of subjugated worlds. Earth had added the Empire to its collection of challenges overcome. And somehow, that felt like the most insulting response of all. Yet as he watched human and Imperial delegates mingling inside, sharing ideas, and making plans, Zach Stiller wondered if perhaps this insulting response was exactly what the ancient Empire had needed. A wake-up call. A reminder that the universe still held surprises. For the first time in centuries, the future seemed unpredictable. And strangely, Zach Stiller found himself looking forward to it.